Welcome back to Invest Global. Today we'll be taking a look at crude oil, some of the market sentiment that is driving this current narrative, overall just what's going on kind of in the macro economy that's affecting oil. So essentially what you want to understand is over the past couple of days, there's been kind of this talk of an immediate ceasefire in Israel. Clearly that didn't happen. They've actually increased the number of missiles and airstrikes, all these different things. So not a good situation overall. And in the hopes for this to happen, this is kind of what has driven these prices. The ceasefire has not happened. We'll be taking a look at some of these kind of mainstream articles. I personally don't like to look at these articles and try and extract information from them. Rather, I try and look at it from a bird's eye view and go, okay, what narrative is this this news article trying to push? And then I try and look at the opposing narrative and then take those kind of like thesis, antithesis, form the synthesis. So like what's in the middle of the Venn diagram, you know what I mean? So you're taking this article and not taking it just for fact. That's the key factor. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we actually have now is I don't care what someone's opinion is. I want to know the objective facts of the situation so I can use this for investing purposes. And especially when you're a commodities investor, like let's say you're a commodities future trader, which is actually what drives a lot of the price of oil, especially when people are talking about trading oil. Typically, they're not talking about actual physical barrels of oil, aka crude oil. They're talking about basically oil future prices. So that's when you can actually trade them and not actually custody the physical product, clearly. I think a lot of people, I'm assuming people watching this understand that, but people that are new to kind of commodity investing, this can be a bit confusing. But the point here is obviously, yes, supply and demand drives a lot of the market sentiment. Then you have things like, calendar cycles. So let's say like a certain part of the year, oil is not as in demand. Prices kind of reflect this. But over the past year, essentially, this whole coronavirus pandemic situation has really caused a lot of problems in the supply chain. Now, this doesn't necessarily affect crude oil because crude oil is basically you could kind of say the driving force of global trade. Now, you can make arguments one way, you can make arguments another way. This could be an hour conversation. I'm just going to break it down to that. Yes, there are clearly nuances in this. Yes, there are things like electric vehicles. Yes, there are alternatives, but crude oil really, you could say, is really the lubricant that like holds it all together, or the adhesive that holds the whole system together of global trade. And when you have a situation like this in the Middle East with Israel, not a good situation, not trying to get political here. Obviously, I think there should be peace in the Middle East. I think that's pretty clear. I think the majority of people can agree on that. Again, this can be very nuanced, very non-nuanced. I'm trying to make my point overall here is oil really reflects these different factors in the kind of global situation as far as different countries' relations, because we're currently on the petrodollar system. So you have to understand, I have a video on this, by the way, you can go check it out, which is called like, what is the petrodollar system? Or I think it's like petrodollar system explained, basically breaking down crude oil, different things like this in global trade, how some countries like Russia and India are maybe moving away from the petrodollar system, but that is besides the point. Wrapping all these factors together, you have the situation in Israel, you have the previous pandemic situation clearly that drive a lot of this price to drop. We hit these lows back here where I was able to pick up some oil. I clearly am not custodying the physical barrel of oil. I hope everyone understands that who's watching this far. But you can see how kind of after this, like December, what is that? Yeah, December of 14 moving into 15, we were kind of moving back to these really lows here. And then we hit all-time lows here in March of 20. So that's really right when all this pandemic stuff started hitting. And you see this is all-time lows, right? So this is where some people are like, oil's going negative. This is really that bottom floor we have. So this is like a section where basically I'll just be breaking down the key technical levels of oil in the charts. Then we'll go into more news stories. But I just wanted to kind of paint the thesis around oil currently in the market, and then we'll take a look at it here in the charts, then move into some other stories as well as talk about silver. So that's basically what we have planned for today's video. That's why I leave timestamps throughout these. If you have questions on just investing in general, I recommend watching some of the I think it's called like must-watch videos in the description. Right now, I'm just basically drawing out key support and resistance levels that I'm seeing right off the bat. Now, obviously, with each of these lines, if you're new to technical analysis, you want to always see these in your mind. Like, you don't have to draw them like this if you're not just a beginner, but always see these lines as a range, okay? So you don't have to draw the range every time, but as long as you can see when you draw a line, it is not an exact point, rather it's a range. That's key. I talk about that in a course called Global TA, Global Technical Analysis. It's basically a free technical analysis course that I am building. The next one is coming out soon. Typically, they're released every Sunday, but since I had to fly back to the U.S. for kind of a quick travel, I had a family member pass away, so I had to make it here for a funeral. But it was nice because I got to be here for Mother's Day, see some family, be here for graduation time, see some of my cousins that graduate. So I hope everyone is enjoying kind of this season. As we're kind of kicking off the summer, things are getting a little bit back to normal, right? I think it's always relative to what you think normal is. But I think the normal way of life, at least in the United States, from, I've been here right about a week. I leave on Saturday. So it's strange because I haven't been back in the United States in a while. And I know it's changed a lot of people, especially, I don't know if you knew this, but in Iowa, actually, there's this thing called a derecho. And where I'm from in Iowa, it hit really, really hard. So when I came back from just traveling around the Balkans, being in Turkey for 3 months for this funeral, kind of a last minute flight, it was strange, kind of coming into the city where it's like it's like something like 50% of the trees in the whole town were knocked down because it's like a tsunami-sized storm in the middle of the United States in like rural towns. So pretty crazy stuff. But yeah, so just overall interesting, kind of my perspective, and I'd be curious to hear your perspective on the whole situation. Clearly, you can see the perspective reflected here in the charts. So these are just some key levels that I lay out. What you want to understand here is prices essentially will consolidate within these boxes because these are just historical support and resistance levels. That's the main thing with technical analysis is it's never an exact science. It's really just it's using past price history to help at least. I like to think of it as helping build your thesis for a trade. So building your thesis can't just rely on technical analysis. Building your thesis can't just rely on sentimental analysis. You have to combine things like fundamental, technical, sentimental, and then with crypto, on-chain analysis. But since we're using crude oil, if it's not a synthetic asset on the blockchain, well, you can't really use on-chain analysis. So today, we're really going to be looking at sentimental analysis. That's kind of the overall market sentiment with those macro factors I was talking about. Obviously, fundamentally, I hope you understand the point of crude. That's maybe for another video where I can go much more in detail and just explaining crude oil as an investment. Even though, people see, obviously, yes, there's this green energy shift. I think so many people just think electric vehicles and these other things, but no. You need to look at things like uranium because it's in the nuclear energy space. And oil is also an interesting play, even so, though some people don't think coal is ever a good investment. Coal is actually not a bad investment right now. A lot of these commodities, besides things that are used to build homes, like silver. I mean, silver popped up a little bit, but the majority of these commodities have stayed relatively stable. I guess it depends what you're comparing them to, obviously, like stable compared to cryptocurrencies, right? But if you look at other things, it just depends how you're comparing them. So point being, we have these key levels. You see that we kind of hit this peak here back in 08. We dropped to these lows here in 09, February 09. And ever since then, it's just kind of been this descending wedge, or you could call it, you could also draw this as a descending triangle, just kind of the macro trend. You see, you kind of have this this descending triangle situation. You could draw it like this. Let's go here to here, using those key levels. So you see price, essentially what we're seeing is lower lows and lower highs in this wedge. So you see a high here, a low here, a lower high from this point, then basically a lower low from that point, a lower high from that point, a lower low from that point, a lower high from that point. Now, this is potentially where you could do a short position, or maybe you could trade this as a breakout. This is something where I would not be leveraging up on this trade at all. I think this is potentially an interesting play, but you really have to take in the sentimental factors in the market. You can't just go, okay, just because the charts look this way, because look at it, just think about it. If you were shorting Dogecoin, people, I hate even to bring this up because it's just like a market meme, but it's like, this is an asset where you have to keep in mind sentimental analysis, because when someone like, Elon, who a lot of people follow him, they can drive the price of something. So that's why I'm saying, like, the price of crude oil for futures, if Elon Musk starts tweeting about it, could go ridiculous. But if he starts talking about, crude is the worst, it could go down. So that's sentimental analysis. And that's why I think taking in news stories, because people trade off fear. In as an investor, I personally think you should try and remove as much fear as possible, really as much emotion as possible from the markets. Focus on logic and rationale, build out a plan, study the market, form a thesis, build on this thesis, and then seek disconfirming evidence. Now, that may all sound like a lot. You can go check out the video down below called the Global Investment Framework, I think it's called, just where I break down some of my thoughts on investing, just on building a thesis, testing that thesis against an antithesis, and really kind of scientifically moving yourself forward, I guess you could say. So that's basically, as far as that goes, is very, very important, because you could be doing, this breakout trade here to the upside, but it could also be a downside. I mean, I personally see it a bit more as a short, to be quite honest. I think we could see oil drop, but it's almost like 60-40. I would even say like maybe 55% to 45% chance. If we do a nice little short position right here from the top, what would that fall would be? Let's see, that would be you know what? Here, let's bring that triangle back. So I'll pull this triangle back out, and then we'll look at some of these news articles. So if we were just trading off this, the measure move breakout price target would be the peak of this triangle. Now, obviously, if it broke down here, so if we touch this top here, just like support and resistance lines, the more times you tap it, the higher chance that it will break. But if since we're kind of touching this line right here, you see this point right here, where we're touching that top descending line in this triangle, what we could see is a breakdown to this levels right here. By the way, you could also call this a descending wedge, which is technically a bullish pattern. But if we broke down here, I would maybe set my take profit obviously a little bit above this line, because I don't think we would break below these historical levels. Now, there are anomaly factors in the market. We have seen kind of a black swan events a little bit, and we could see some crazy things happen with oil. But again, I think what's going on in the Middle East is very, very important to watch, especially when you have, like Biden coming out and like making all of these claims, and then it's like, man, this stuff doesn't really get executed. You can say as much stuff as you want, and this is not political at all. I am really, anti talking about politics. I like to look at things objectively. I don't like to hear a lot of opinions. If I hear opinions, I need to hear the other side of the argument, because basically what ends up happening is a lot of people get stuck in these echo chambers, and they only listen to like the Democratic point of view, or they only listen to the Republican point of view, and they get all amped up, and they're like, man, I have a lot of things that I know, I got a lot of things I want to say, but they never look at the opposite side. That's the importance of seeking out disconfirming evidence. So if this person over here is saying that, there's going to be peace in the Middle East and there's going to be a ceasefire, I want to hear the other side of the argument. I want to, if that's your thesis, find the antithesis. Don't hide from it. That's what so many people do, is they hide from the opposing argument. And then when the opposing argument says anything, it immediately becomes an argument. It should be a discussion. Okay, it should be a discussion. Really, the best ideas should win. That is the goal. The best ideas should win. So, as far as this is on a sentimental perspective, I think this article is fairly important. You can kind of see the factors. Sometimes you can even, if you want to really study sentimental analysis, I guess you could really dig into things like social media. Obviously, there can be bots, but there are ways to kind of figure out what's what. Like, for example, the sentiment on Twitter for news like peace in the Middle East. Clearly, there is some errors in those algorithms, but you can identify a lot. So the president expressed his support for ceasefire, discussed the U.S. engagement with Egypt and all other partners at the end, and White House said it read out of the call. Egypt is considered a key interlocutor in dealing with Hamas and negotiating the Israelis on effort to achieve a ceasefire. The U.S. does not speak with Hamas, which it considers a terrorist organization. So that's the big thing, is like, the whole, we do not negotiate with terrorists. So these things will definitely, I think they could, as kind of this macro factor, push this price of crude oil down here. Obviously, maybe I'll do a video a month from now. You have to take in mind, this is the macro chart, right? So we're on the monthly time frame. So each of these candles count for a month. So, if we go to the hour or the 5-minute time frame or the hourly time frame, you can see things a little bit more intensely. So for commodities, I prefer being a macro trader. I do not prefer day trading these. For day trading things, I like to just get in and out. So that's why I like sharp volatility, like in the crypto market. But I'm not doing much trading nowadays. It is very fun, though, I will say. Whoops. I will move that back. The point is you can see them very closely. So each of these candles represent an hour. When you're on the monthly time frame, each of the candles represent a month. Again, I talked about if you're new to technical analysis, I talk about this in Global TA. So this would be a very, very long-term play. But you can see, you can see these sharp drops. Like, for example, this drop, if you would have been able to short this right here, let's see. Sorry about that. For some reason, I always forget the short positions are down here. So if you go right here and you go from the top of that, to the bottom of that, what you have about 73%. Yeah, somewhere in there, around the 75% actually profits if you're shorting there. So you can see how you could potentially just set up a nice little short-term trade here down to the bottom. You could even set it like here, let's say, pull some profits here around this like 40% level. And yeah, I would set a bit of a tighter stop loss, because if it breaks out from there, I would set my stop loss like right there. Because you see right above this point, you could even use this as like a level of resistance right there. Because if it would break resistance, then potentially we could see a move higher. But I am thinking, I am more, I guess, if I had to choose, it'd be like 60-40, and I would be 60% chance that we see this macro drop. Again, I will probably do a video. I'm planning to do this channel for a long time, so maybe in a year I'll take a look back at crude oil, what some of this price action has been going on. So that's kind of my overall analysis. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. If you think we will see this move higher, I'm not throwing it out. Again, I'm saying that probably a 40% chance we'll see that scenario, 60% chance we'll see a move down. Now, I'm not saying it's down to these levels. Like I said, I would be probably pulling some profits somewhere in this area, right around like 45%. You can also use things like Fibonacci retracements to help you with that. Again, I talk about it in Global TA. This is just on daily FX. Kind of some sentiment as far as longs and shorts for crude oil. You see that 57% of clients are net short. So U.S. crude oil overall, currently it is in a bullish pattern, but the high is 66,409 and the low is 66,161. That is quite interesting. It's really just kind of sideways, to be quite honest. It's just been consolidating. This is that article I was talking about. We can move on here. So Taiwan and Singapore, which have handled the pandemic relatively well in 2020, reported surging COVID infections in the community. Both economies have entered partial lockdowns, resulting in panic selling in their stock markets. Mutant viral strains found in India appear to be more contagious and fatal than the previous ones. Sorry, water break. Than the previous ones, rendering a fragile economic recovery vulnerable to backsliding. China has also tightened border controls and lengthened the quarantine period for inbound travelers in the wake of foreign outbreaks. India and Japan, the world's third and fourth largest oil importers respectively, are still struggling to contain the wide spread of the virus domestically. The complicated situation may continue to weigh on the energy demand and outlook in the region. So, all of these macro factors, guys, with really global trade. That's why this channel is called Invest Global. I was thinking about the course Global TA. That's why this channel is called Global. Oh my gosh, I cannot, my words. So that is not why this channel is called the Global TA. That is why this channel is called Invest Global, is because you have to study these macro factors. You have to take the bird's eye view and go, wait a second. Let me remove my bias. Let me remove my thoughts around my home country, how I think trade works, and just look at the objective facts. That's why I'm starting this channel. If you're interested in these factors, I would follow along, subscribe to the channel. Pretty much that's all it for today's video. Maybe I should do a part 2. Let me know in the comments. You do have oil on this kind of move upwards today. If we look at it in the technical charts, you can see if we just get rid of these. By the way, I just use TradingView for charting. So, it's been at these historical prices of $25 for so long. Finally, we got this move up. This was kind of in that FUD of, if you remember when there's like the silver squeeze after the Wall Street bets craze. So that kind of drove that little factor there. Nothing really happened. It's better if we just go on the monthly price charts, to be quite honest. But I do think we will be returning to these all-time highs relatively soon for silver. I would be, if you can get silver for spot price in bullion, I would personally be averaging in because I do not think we will be in these levels for very long. Most likely what I could see happening is some sort of just very, very basic pattern like this, where we see maybe like an ascending triangle, just kind of start building up here. and we see something, obviously we're on the monthly time frame, so we can make it look a little bit better here if we pop over to this time frame. So if we go to the 1 week time frame and we just look at it like this, and maybe we'll pull this up to like that, move this down, you can kind of see this triangle pattern setting up, right? So we're seeing higher lows, but the highs are staying the same at these levels. Now, what could happen with silver, obviously some people speculate the price is manipulated. That's something, again, I'm not interested in opinions. I'm interested in kind of the facts of the market. I think most likely, since JP Morgan literally had to pay billions of dollars in fines, that they are rigging the market in some sort of way. Now, again, doesn't matter my opinion. I'm just saying that is the facts of what happened. They had to pay a massive fine for literally rigging the markets for commodities, for silver and gold. But a lot of people still say no. Anyways, that I digress. Maybe I should do a video just on that, on rigging the metals market. The point here is, again, is not to get into, my opinion or your opinion, but rather to go, okay, what are these factors that have been holding down silver? Well, it's a lot of this, kind of rigging in the metals market, in my opinion. And we've been in this kind of bear market here. We have those highs up here around $50. I do think we will be returning to these highs relatively soon. And I think most likely what we'll see is we'll see a surge in gold. Then we could see something happen in oil. So let's say we see crude oil drop. We could see, out of the asset classes, you have to understand, like, housing prices are getting ridiculous. Stock market is, in a little bit of a pullback, but we were seeing new all-time highs. You have to remember just a couple of months ago, right? Just like in April, we were seeing just last month, we were seeing new all-time highs in multiple indices regularly. And then let's see, there's also, there's so many other factors here. I didn't get to all the articles. I was going to talk about this, but maybe I can just do a macro video on oil specifically. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this type of video where I really do kind of just my general thoughts on the oil market, this is not something where I'm like, you have to only agree with what I'm saying. I think ideally what you do is you ideally find someone that looks at both sides of the arguments. So they're taking an objective view on things, because so many people will just tell you, buy this, sell that, this is a good investment, this is a bad investment. No. You need to form your own opinion, because you want to look at longevity, just like investing. It's all about longevity. If you don't build this proper skills to be able to invest global, you will just fall for like short-term wins. That's why people that are on these like a Wall Street bet things are like getting in Dogecoin. It's like, man, you really only learn the lesson when you fail. And I think that's one of those things that's like, some of these people need to fail. If you've never really invested before, you need to have those bad investments. You need to have those failures so you can learn from them. As Charlie Munger says, everybody learns from mistakes, but it's a heck of a lot easier to learn from other people's mistakes. So I implore you, if you are young, especially, honestly, it doesn't matter what age you are, but purposely seek out disconfirming evidence to your own opinions. That is the most important thing. If I can leave you with one thing, because then you're sharpening your thesis. You have to understand, think about that cycle: thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So your thesis is your thoughts around, let's say, crude oil, or around, let's say, you're interested in investing in something like Ethereum. Well, form a thesis. What is your opinion? Bring multiple factors into this. Look at fundamentals, look at technicals, look at sentimentals, look at on-chain analysis. Listen to people in the space that agree with your position. Listen to people that don't agree with your position. Form your thesis. Now you got your thesis. Specifically seek out disconfirming evidence. So maybe a great way to do this, in my opinion, seriously, especially if you're like camera shy, put out a video on YouTube. Just say my thoughts around blank. That's your thesis video. So put that out. Hope for people to comment disagreeing with your video, because that's helping you. Seriously. That's one of the things that I love about YouTube is you get instant feedback. So if someone disagrees with you or you did something wrong, I'm always looking to iterate and improve. I don't give a damn. I have no ego. I try and remove the ego completely, because I care about other people's. It's not necessarily that. That's maybe a topic for another conversation. It's like I weigh that person's opinion, so I can improve my thesis, right? Like you could just kind of have the Robin Hood approach and kind of take from the rich and give to the poor. So that's just kind of, I guess, how I see things. I don't know. You can have your own opinion. The point is trying to apply some scientific thinking, trying to apply like some Socratic method of thinking in your day-to-day life, and ideally in investing as well. So that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe button all. If you made it this far, thank you very much. Let me know in the comments what video you want to see next. Your overall thoughts on this. Apologize if it got a little ranty, but hey, Love and life. As always, invest global, and until next time.